everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today's a very exciting day because we're going to be doing line and wash, and the subject's going to be a couple in the rain in a cherry blossom forest with an umbrella, which is like the most romantic, and it's surprisingly beginner friendly. Now, during this lesson, I'm going to explain to you all the materials I'm using, and today's a really fun class because we don't use a lot of materials for this one, like in paint color. I'm going to explain every technique. I'm going to demonstrate everything that's going on so that you can duplicate this for yourself at home. All you've got to do is really just watch and paint along. If you're here during the live course, you can ask questions. If you are going to ask questions, it does help us if you put them all in caps, and we promise we won't think you're yelling at us. To help me do all this craziness is my husband, John.
Hello.
He turns on all these cameras and makes sure that all the streams are streaming. And he also watches you guys in chat and makes sure that I see questions. If I miss your question, go to the YouTube channel and put it in the comments, and I will get to it because I am first and foremost an art teacher, and I like to teach art online, just for free in the craziness that I am. I am so excited to see everybody today.
Oh, I know. We have a full house on both channels.
Both channels. So this is kind of basically what we're going to be doing. This is a great class if you've been trying to learn watercolor but feeling frustrated with it, because it's kind of a no-fail in that you have these anchoring lines that allow you to construct the image while in a relaxed way learning the techniques. How fun am I? Now, first thing, I don't expect beginners to know how to draw. I do encourage drawing. We do sometimes teach drawing. I recommend you learn drawing, but it doesn't have to be the first art skill that you take on. And tracing is definitely not cheating. And because of that, we provide from our website for download, or if you're in the event on Facebook, you will have seen it. If you're on YouTube, you got to go to the website because they don't give me a way to give you the images yet there. You're going to take this, print it out, and rub, and this is the magic tool, just a regular pencil on the back, all over the back. When we were at the retreat, a lot of the people who came with us, that was their first time to do a traceable, John. It's a good technique, and this is just kind of quick. If you want to be, some people are don't like little bits of the graphite being on their paper where it doesn't go, and that's very stressful for them. The trick to that is to tape your image to the window. The lines will show through the paper and the light, and then very carefully just graphite the lines that you want to transfer. There's always a way to make it work. You'll notice that I have taped it down in 2 places, and I do that so that the image doesn't shift or move in case I have to check something to see if the transfer is going on well, or if there's something that I want to do to make sure that I've got where it's been, and also so I can. So what happens when you don't tape it down is that it can shift on you and it becomes kind of like a double exposure. It gets real weird. Just tape it down. You can hold it with your hand. It's a much harder skill. And I'm going to take a colored pencil. This is an extra nice colored pencil. I know this is an extra nice colored pencil. I see Sharon, who's saying she loves my hair, and I see Colleen over on Facebook, and Heather, and I see Essa on YouTube also noticing the hair, and Phyllis. Yes, I have finally gotten past my COVID hair. So I did get vaccinated. That's just what felt right for me. I got vaccinated, and then I let that sucker sink in for a minute just to make sure it was going to take. And then I finally, in our area, a lot of people are vaccinating, and they're pretty cautious about everything. So I felt confident enough to go to the hairdresser, and I finally went, which was like, for me during this was like a big deal. And I understand. I am not telling you what to do. It's not my job. I'm an art teacher. And so that's I will tell you where to trace lines. That's my job. I'm just telling you what was happening, like how I got to my hair. But that pink hair, that was my COVID hair, because I felt like I could do that myself for a sustained amount of time. I didn't know it was going to be a year. That's the longest I've had a hair color since I was in my 20s. Oh my gosh. I mean, wow, that went on. That I'm really excited to have this. Coney, thank you so much. And I see that Lula Hall is over on Facebook. It is good to see you. And I see Karen is over here too. We had such a nice retreat. It was really wonderful, the retreat. Really great weather and good attendance. We had a great meetup after, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So that's been going really well. I'm looking forward to showing you guys this. You'll notice that I'm just tracing over all the black lines. I kind of pre-did the couple because they're a little bit longer. And I didn't want you to have to sit through me doing this for a very long amount of time. But I do want you to see me doing it so you understand how I'm going to get to the part that I ink. Now, so how line and wash works is that I'm going to use a waterproof pen. And that waterproof pen is going to be all the black lines that you see here. It's going to be the structure lines, and I'll show you how to do this. And then I'm going to just wash watercolor over it. So as I do these techniques and practice my skills, my image is going to come out gorgeous no matter what. It's kind of the coolest thing ever. I'm really excited to show it. We've got a bunch of these projects coming up, and they're beautiful high graphic projects that you as a beginner don't have to worry about doing. You can see that I'm just going over everything. I do like to let myself know where the little base of the tree is because that helps me put the wet reflection and shadow across the leaves. It's a rainy day, and on a rainy day, things reflect. If you did acrylic April with me, you're already saying in your head, water is a mirror. I know, water is a mirror. Water is a mirror. But it is a mirror. I'm going to give myself a little guidance on where my distant horizon that the couple is walking into, the far off park. And then I'm going to come along here and follow my little bank edge. This will kind of let me know where the leaves and banks are going. I'm only doing 2 colors. You could do opera pink, and I'm just mentioning that because my mother-in-law, who paints with me a lot and also helps with just everything, really likes opera pink, and she's like, can we do opera pink? And I had some important opera pink news for you guys.
Oh, yeah?
This is huge news. You guys ready for the huge news? Thumbs up for the huge news because it's kind of exciting. I learned that Sennelier reformulated its opera pink so it wouldn't be as fugitive. It would last like way longer than any of us need it. And I was so excited because it can be a fugitive color. That means that it runs away or it fades slowly. It's not something you significantly notice unless you work in a museum, but it's something that as an art teacher, I have to tell you about because that's my responsibility. But the Sennelier was reformulated, so it's not. So most of the modern stuff that you're getting won't be that. Now, do you see this beautiful image that has transferred there?
Mm-hmm.
That's a gorgeous image. I'll put my pencil back. Karen says that she just got her hair cut off. And Karen with a Y says, hi there, this is so exciting. And then Anna DeCasa said, loved the meetup. Yeah, I did too. It was good to meet you, Anna. It really was. It was very cool. I just loved meeting everyone. We painted together. We had gifts for people who showed up. And it was a bigger group than we anticipated. So that was nice. And what was kind of cool, and if you were there, we had a husband's table.
We did.
I think that they were all together. It just happened to be husbands. We could have
did.
called it a partner's table. We just didn't, in this particular one, have partners there. But it's an all-inclusive event. But we had a husband's table, and they were sitting there talking about their wives painting, and that was really funny to me.
There was definitely a shared experience happening.
There was a shared experience. There really was. And then everybody kind of lived in a similar area, so that was sort of fun. Let's talk about the 2 cool tools we're going to be using for this.
Okay.
This here. I like this one. I'll recommend it. You can get it at Michael's. You can get it online. It is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen Black, $1.99. The important words, though, what you're looking for and whenever you're going is waterproof, right? And maximum light fastness. In other words, this thing ain't never going to fade. It's going to be on like the wall in the cave forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's long term. If you're going to do a Sharpie today, use the pencils as your line and wash, the pencil lines, and then ink at the end. Because Sharpie does not hold well when water gets real involved on the paper. It starts to bleed out. This crazy thing, the clear crayon. It's a clear crayon, John. It's called a wax resist crayon. You can get them at the art store and online and all kinds of places. They have varying reviews, but here's the thing. You could also use a candle and a pinch, or you could use a white crayon. You could go get your kid's crayon box and use a white crayon. You're just creating a wax resist. Okay?
All right.
So those are 2 cool tools that you've got to know about. All right. Now, I like this. This is a brush pen, and all I have to do is come in, and I'll start with my couple, and very carefully draw out over the lines that I made. So I'm not having to draw, am I? I mean, I was originally, but right now, and you guys, all you've got to do is be able to go over these lines. Now, I do an interesting thing. I like to break my lines. And what that means is there's little breaks in them, and that makes the image look a little more artful. I think. There are also technical micron pens in this line. So if that's your preference, if you don't enjoy a brush pen, and that is not uncommon, you would just then do a micron. So when I go over everything with the color, these lines will be stable. Isn't that cool?
That is pretty cool.
I like his little jeans, and his little back leg is back. His back leg is back. And then his little front leg is front. He's got a little belt today and a little thing. A little blowing in the dress. Very carefully try to get her little legs. I would say that's the more challenging one to get. Because he's got jeans on, so it's just sort of a jean shape where she actually is sporting some heels and looking very beautiful for her walk. I'm going to make sure that's in there. And let's give her some flowing hair. Isn't that great? So now the couple, no matter what we do, is going to look like a couple, even small. It's not going to be that messy couple you see everywhere. It's like, this is going to be cute, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is the cute one. I'm also going to come along here and start to line my leaf bank.
I'll say thank you.
I got a little more artful with my leaf bank this time. Thank you.
Yeah, to Libby and all the Starfall senders.
Oh, thank you guys so much for the support. You know, check those Facebook events, check the schedule. There's a huge collab coming up with my mom. There's an amazing painting coming up on Sunday in watercolor. I got a great suggestion today, John.
What was that?
Somebody was like, hey, I was looking for your watercolor channel, familiar with my acrylic channel, saw the watercolor channel, but wasn't sure it was me because I put the dog face up and they were concerned it was a knockoff channel. That happens to me a lot. So I've changed the face to my face.
I was wondering what was up with that. I was like, oh.
That's
like
why.
You did some updated branding.
You know, because you guys give me suggestions and stuff, and that is completely cool. I actually am okay with feedback. You know, I mean, I'm like anyone else. Of course, I don't like really rude feedback. That can be a little challenging, but all feedback is helpful. Did you notice how I kind of made little light lines and they're sort of like not solid? That kind of helps it feel a little artful as well. But on the tree, it can be a little more solid. And just because I'm coming here with the black lines doesn't mean I'm not going to use my watercolor. I super am. You know, I could even use the black liner to do ink if I wanted to. Anywhere it's open, I can put leaves over it. See, if I don't put a line there, I can easily put some pink leaves over it. And it's going to be important to our little trees that we get that going. I like doing this, actually. This is a 140-pound watercolor paper. The paper matters, yo. It really does. I would not get less than 140-pound watercolor paper. The weight prevents the buckling. If you can get it in a block, that's the best. If you can't get it in a block, tape the sheet down because that will prevent the warping. Because when the paper fibers get wet, they warp, you know, and the sizing kind of starts to break down. And we learned all about sizing at the retreat, didn't we? Because we had a materials expert who came to paint with us, and so we got to hear all about sizing and how the glue, and that it's almost as important as the paper because it keeps the water on the surface. That was a super interesting little learn. Just going over my light little pencil lines, and they're light, but guess what? Now that I'm doing this, you guys can really see the image, can't you? The usual complaint is like, everyone's like, I can't see the traceable. Well, you can see it now. In the upcoming ones where, oh my gosh, I've got a cowgirl coming up with flowers in her hat.
Oh, yeah.
Holding a horse. She's like so amazing. You're going to love her. You're going to want to paint her. You're going to want to have her in your home. She's like the dream we've all had like this last year of where we wished we were or what our lives. Well, I don't know if you're a horse person. As a horse person, it was my dream. So excited to be back teaching today. So I have literally been teaching every day.
It's true.
And then I did a bunch of paintings because I've got the Painted Bird collaboration coming up with my mom on Friday the 6th in August. Look at that right there. Do you guys love it? Shelly Solomon says, I just got 140 pound to use for practice on acrylic. So you can use 140 pound for acrylic, What you've got to remember is that it's thirsty. It's thirsty paper. A couple things that can help you is this product, gloss glazing liquid. You can also seal your paper with 1 or 2 coats of just plain white acrylic. Doesn't even have to be just that. Just to control the thirst. All right. Question, says Amanda. I don't have a marker or pen for watercolor that won't wash out. Can I line after the painting, or would it just be easier to grab a watercolor pen? So, line after the painting is entirely dry, right? That's how I used to do this. I just line after it's all over. But it's easier for you guys to line first. However, if you just have a Sharpie or something that's not going to be waterproof, absolutely line after. Just use the pencil lines as your guide, and then you'll carefully line after, and it will still work. It works either way. This is just an easy way for you guys to see it happen as it's going, right? I'm going to be very light about this line because, and when I want to be light about a distant line, but I want to show that it's there, I do, again, breaking the line. That's another way of expressing my pressure is light, and so my line is very light, and that gives me the distant, everything that I need. Okay. Joy says, can you resize paper? Yes, you can. You can absolutely, you buy paper sizing and you can size your paper. And I would definitely follow manufacturer's instructions for that. But you can absolutely do it. Sizing smells, but it's awesome and it works really well.
It's always had a smell to it.
Oh, I love answering your questions. All right. Now we're here. I want to let this dry for a little bit. So while it's drying, if you have one, and again, if you got a candle that's clear, a little votive for the power outages or whatever. But if you've got a kid, grab their white crayon. Will work for this purpose. And then when you can, grab a clear crayon. And then when you're messing with your kid, replace all their colored crayons with your clear crayons. It blows their minds. They're like, something sucked all the color out of my crayons, Mom. I got 48. I bought them on Amazon. It was one of those when you have to buy bulk, like too many for a small amount of money. I got like 48 for a few dollars, and I was like, oh. So yes, pranks happened. And then also we gave people who came to the retreat some. I'm going to come on the right side of my tree here, left side of my tree, and I'm going to add just a little bit of this crayon. And what's going to happen here is this is going to keep the paint, right, from coloring, covering the paper. These break a lot. They did not get great reviews. I'm going to tell you real honestly right now. They did not get ideal reviews in any way. People were just like, I'm not loving it.
Joy would like a sizing tutorial.
Okay, for you, Joy, anything. But in general, I'd be like, sizing.
Is there a resist pen?
I believe that there is. There is a, it does Frisket, liquid masking agent, which would work here too, guys. You got a bunch of liquid masking agent. Yeah. Everywhere I'm just putting a little crayon down. You could absolutely put a little light on her dress here. Maybe a little bit on his pants. Kind of nice to do. Go ahead and resist a little bit into the tree. It's just nice because sometimes it's hard to hold the white on your paper. And this lets you do that a little bit. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my paper to the side so I can do this well. And I have to imagine. I come here and I'm going to make little marks. Kind of wiggle back. These are going to be little water reflections when I'm done. It's super fun. By the way, this is super fun to do with kids. These wax resist, again, because if you get them on Amazon, you're going to get 48. So trust me, there's a million projects you can do with them. A lot to do. I checked that out because I was like, man, that's a lot of clear crayons. So once pranks were done and gave some to the retreat people, then I'm like, okay, we're going to do some kid projects. All right. Desiree says, I'm so excited. I stumbled across nature journaling, and now Sherpa has taught me how to do watercolor, and I'm thinking about adding that to the homeschool curriculum soon. Watercolor journaling is fantastic. If you don't get acrylic involved, you don't even have to use Dorland wax to keep the pages from sticking together. So you could. And it's really good. Just get a good watercolor journal. Fabricano makes some good ones. There's some good ones out there that have like the band that holds it down, and a good pen and a good pencil, and they're just in it. All right. This is wonderful. I'm going to take my big brush. Actually, I'm going to do my couple first because I want them to be tidy. I'm going to throw you around. And I'm going to get my number 14 SoftAqua wet. Now, here's the deal on this brush. I love this brush. It is imitation squirrel, and I did confirm with the manufacturer there is no animal in this. It's entirely synthetic fiber. It works just like animal hair. So you don't have to do a sable. You don't have to do anybody alive or a squirrel, and it performs just as well. I've been blown away by this. Just letting you know. Quinacridone Magenta on my palette and Payne's Gray on yours. If you have the watercolor pans, they're like the circles, just pick a bright, like the pink that you like that's a magenta, and your black. This is 2 colors. If you feel like getting an opera pink in there, by all means enjoy. You can do more colors, but we're just showing you guys how you can do things with just 2 colors. Okay? I'm going to wet out my paint here. Notice that I come to the edge. I'm just saying this because sometimes if you've never had tube watercolors or watercolors, you don't know that you're supposed to thin it out and wet it out like this. See how I'm adding a lot of water? And I'm thinning the pigment so that I have color, but it is diluted. All right. I've got a paper towel here so I can control how much water is on my paper. I'm going to come right here. I'm rinsing out because what happened is I got some paint on my brush that shouldn't be there, and it was going to make a moment for me. And not a fun moment. Let's get our little umbrella a little wet. Pre-wet the umbrella, like you do. And then we're going to just kind of wash in the beginning. And you can see where I put the wax right here across the top of the umbrella. It's already making a reflection. I can come here and get a little darker color.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Look at that wonderful little, just terrific umbrella.
You can kind of beat up a little bit there on them. I'm going to try to focus that.
Yeah. I'm going to come down and do her dress just with the paint right here. And you can see where the wax is. Look at that go. The little heels could be pink too. See, I'm not struggling. I'm getting to do a loose watercolor effect, but I'm not having to struggle to keep the shape and form, which often, you know, guys, is where it's difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where things can be a challenge. Now, the Payne's Gray I just love. I'm going to come in and on his shirt, and make sure I've got maybe a little bit here on his shirt. On the back, in the middle, coming down the center there, just because I want to. And he's all gray. Her legs are gray. Gray hair. Okay. Now we have a little gray couple. Not hard, but I'm going to get some darker Payne's Gray. Notice I'm loading it heavier onto my brush. If you're on the wet pans, you want to get that wet and really like kind of load it into your brush, right? I'm going to come here and under the umbrella add maybe a little bit of darker color because they're in shadow. And the front leg could be darker. See? A little more in shadow, which puts his one little calf back. We're really getting to paint quite quite an interesting image without actually having to stress over construction. So there they are. They're really wonderful, and they're in. That's all it takes to get them in. They're just a light little couple, and they're going to be just happy. You can come back when they're dry and add some glaze over it, and we will.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely can. Now I'm going to do an interesting thing. All right, I'm going to take a bigger brush. You can use your round. I'm live, so I've got to cover more paint, water, like paper in a quicker manner because you guys are watching live. But at home, take your time. You can use whichever brush you want. I'm going to use my quill, same line, same company. It's just, this is just the most medievally of the brushes. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to kind of pre-wet some paper around where my trees are.
Oh,
I'm kind of doing the upper third, guys. and I'm not doing the trees. I'm kind of going around the tree branches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going around the tree branches. You were asking a question, John.
Yes. What did you use to draw the label on your palette? Did you use a special pen?
To draw the label?
Yeah, the little labels of the paint colors, like the Quinacridone Magenta.
I did. I bought the PBO porcelain pen, and it's like for ceramics, and you like literally you can color on any ceramic mug, and then you fire it in the oven, and then it's stable. And since this was ceramic, I did that. I fired it in my oven, and it worked. It's super duper worked. I was really surprised. I just wanted to make sure you guys had something you could see. Now, so you see that's wet to about here. I haven't gotten the branches. I'm going to get my brush, my 14 round, and I'm going to load up a heavier watercolor of the quinacridone. I'm going to come here and give myself some wet into wet blooming trees. Wonderful.
See.
I'm going to just do this where the paper is wet, not into the dry area. I'll get that later. I just want to softly have some blooming trees. I can go through the branch. I know I'll come back with a dark color. You know, I'm leaving lots of little spaces open. Notice that. Lots of little spaces open. Make sure this is wet through here, because I do want this to be a very soft application of tree. I want my trees to be soft, guys. And sometimes your paper will start to dry out. You can see I am wetting this out with my number 14 round. So it's not that you have to have the quill or bigger wash brush. It's just that sometimes it's nice to have a wash, a round, and a bright in your paint sets, because they help you do lots of different techniques. You'll see that where I'm putting paint down, where it's wet, it's going to bloom out. It's going to soften. That's what it's going to do. And I can just kind of go around randomly, leave little white spots, leave little areas where the leaves maybe are backlit or something has happened, you know.
Ooh. So
this down here and through there so that the trees have a little bit. Isn't that great?
It is.
I really like that. And that's just the start of these just sort of very nice light little trees that are going on. You had a question?
I do.
Okay, I have an answer.
So Amanda was asking, are you considering doing any little brush watercolor paintings?
Yes, and this is something, if you're willing to line for them, they can do. This is kind of an all age appropriate thing because they're learning the techniques. And we're really wanting to start a kids channel. It's just been finding the time. We've made puppets. We're into it. We just have to find the time. But I would absolutely consider doing that. I love mixing up crayons and watercolor. It's actually kind of fun. All right, next thing we can do, we're going to pre-wet my walkway. I'm going to turn my paper a little bit just so that I have an easier time getting to parts.
Okay.
And I'm going to come through here, paint around my couple. It can go over the tree lines. You're just going right up to the edge. Everything is wet. You could change, if the pink was bothering you, like these are pigmented colors. So if you're like, oh, I don't want any pink in my water, you could change it. We're coming back with gray and there's pink. And since it's two colors, I like it. That's where I'm at. And I can already see the water reflection happening. All right. So I'm going to come in and get my gray. Back here, it can be quite light. Roaming through there. Look, we're just making a nice light little walkway. Behind them, we might get a lot more little gray because they're casting a shadow, but it's a very light shadow. And I'll let this be a little streaky. come along the little edge of the forest. Not wild how that works. Coming along the little edge. It just looks like it's a distant wet area, doesn't it? This works because the paper is wet. Also, core watercolor, which is what I'm using in my Payne's Gray, has a lot of flow aid in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really lets all of that bloom. Excuse me. Really lets all of that bloom. If you're having trouble, if your watercolor is not softening easily into the water, you could buy a product called Oxgall, Oxgall, and add a couple drops to your water, and it will do it for you, even on Crayola.
Huh.
Wetting agent, which is what flow aid used to be called, but they changed it because there's another product called flow aid. That's really kind of a professional grade product, and it requires some studio safety to use. But Oxgall you can use today. And see how we have water on we have this beautiful water. We have the beginning of these soft trees.
Oh, yeah.
This is wonderful. I'm going to change this water to a clean water. That's not a clean water. That wouldn't have been a good change. It's not really that bad, but I just don't want you guys to be worried about the background.
The tinting.
If I'm going to do large amounts, I'm going to just go ahead and take my quill because, well, it's easier. And I can go over the trees for this part, and here's why I can. Because they're going to be a darker gray than this background is. So they're not going to be hurt by the light gray that I'm putting out here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's okay to go up into the tree edge so that these can soften together. We don't mind that. We're okay with that. We even want it. Right? We want the gray to come up and soften coming up. So it's a nice wet background. I'm going to get my 8 round again. I could do it with my quill too, but I'm going to get my 8 round again. Jenny says it would be cool if you could do a children's class for Thanksgiving and a Christmas project. Well, that is super doable.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see how the trees have a resist, and I can come and put the distant forest, which is just this very light gray, back here. I will work it up into the trees a little where it's kind of wet so that they see how they're blending. The distant gray of the far away.
That's a rhyme.
It is. And it's also an atmospheric perspective thing that it's good to pay attention to as an artist. When something is far away, it's desaturated. That means the color isn't as vibrant. And it's often lighter. The value is often lighter.
Huh.
So those are things that you can play with when you want to say something is far away. Now, I do want to say that I've got a little fog going up. I'm going to grab a little of my Payne's Gray here and come along the bottom. These are maybe little distant fuzzy bushes or mist. I'll let it travel up along the bottom. I just want to make sure it's uneven. And I want it to stay very light around the couple, so I won't go too deep around them because everything around them is going to stay very light. I'm going to do just a little more here. There we go. It's just blooming out. I like the little kind of thing. That's lovely, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Now I'm at this, and I'm letting this have a little bit of a rest. I'm loading up some of my gray, and I'm going to come out from my tree. Paint what is the shadow and reflection. This is a shadow and kind of a reflection. It comes from the tree and then reflects very beautifully on the forest floor. I'm going to take a little more of my gray. Then come here now on him with that glaze and also add some personality. Wild.
Mm-hmm.
So they can continue to develop. A little more magenta here. the umbrella a little pop. Rinse that out fairly well. What we're doing is we're letting this not completely dry, but be much drier than it is. I'm going to get a little of my gray, kind of darker, and I'm going to come behind them. I'm going to make a little focus shadow. Isn't that nice? That just really speaks about them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is going to be nice to have on your wall. I know Jennifer Bowman is painting this for a family member. I'm excited to see how that comes out. I'm going to make sure that I've got a nice little dark shadow along my walkway. It kind of bloomed out a lot, and I do want it to be there. I'm going to make sure that it's back. Because that's an important thing, the way the shadows are in this. And then I'm also going to kind of come through here. I'm going to turn this to the side a little bit just so I have some control. And I'm going to make sure that I've got some, not the same lines, right? Just some dark lines, right? That sort of speaks to that. And then I can bring some of them down. A fun little reflection thing. This is a dry brush. Can you guys see how that my brush is dry?
Yeah.
And that also adds a little bit of water reflection to this moment. Since we're here, though, and there's so much pink, and we know there's going to be pink, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my quinacridone now. And I will add it to some of the areas that are reflecting. And I find it's good to add a little of the pink to everything.
See, that could be Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
It really could. Nothing happened to them, did it?
Not that I'm aware of. They sang a song together.
Okay. They're islands. Okay, that's fine. That can happen. I just man, you know,
I know,
with
it's
everything
weird
going
today.
on,
Like,
you just want to make sure everybody's okay, right? So
as far
pretty
as
dark
I know,
pink, and I'm adding just a little bit. You can see it going right across over everything. And so now we've got the trees are sort of reflecting. Are you guys kind of blown away?
I'm pretty blown away.
Amethyst Rock says, I just picked up an Arches pad yesterday, so it's going to be rewarding to paint this. Yes, it is. Yeah, that's a very good pad for this project. See how my hand kind of pushed things out? I needed a little drier than this to do the next part. So while I don't recommend you use a hairdryer in your watercolor, you at home, allow your paper to dry completely if it's not for this next stage. Let me hair dryer because I'm teaching live, but you let it dry. And the reason that you let it dry is it's continuing to pull into the paper and to diffuse and develop and soften. And if you let a watercolor fully do that, you get almost a whole other painting out of what you think is your painting. And it's like amazing. But for the purposes of teaching, I'm going to go ahead and dry this real quick, just enough to work and put in the tree. Okay.
So I wasn't aware. Thank you guys, first of all, for joining us. And thank you for giving me all the updates in chat. I did not know that Kenny is no longer singing with us here. Hopefully he is still singing with us somewhere out there. And Dolly is still here singing along. She seems to be immortal. So, with that modern update, okay.
Pamela says that she's enjoying this a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I am.
So just a little bit. I just needed it where my fingers weren't moving the paint. Right. I'm going to take my gray. I'm going to go for one value darker than the background. I can come through my trees, so don't worry about that. And I'm going to make distant trees that are sort of in the mist. They are, the little brush stroke is thicker at the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
And I didn't ink this in because I wanted these to be light. Right? These are just distant, far away trees that you can kind of see, right? I'll bring this one up here. You can take it right up into the pink. That's okay. You don't want to go like too much to the pink, but just it's okay to go up into the pink somewhat because we've got another layer. And when you're trying to say that a forest has depth, this is an important part of it. Any misty forest is going to have a few trees. You can say just go on the toe of my brush and kind of break out little lines. When you're painting trees, you remember that they're thickest at the bottom and then they taper out as they go. You just don't want to make like a fork, right? You don't want the taper to be a trunk in the middle and then a trunk and a trunk right like this. You'd want to stagger it like a I don't want to do that.
You don't want to save the bird signals.
I don't want to do that. You want to stagger it.
Like a tree, not like a bird.
Not like a bird. That was almost kind of a thing, and my kids would have been like, Mom!
I had a question. I don't know what it was anymore. Oh, that's what it was. Connie was asking, what other color combinations other than pink and gray?
Any pop of color and gray. You can do really any. For that, you can do any two. In watercolor especially, you can do any two. Any two. Any two. Have fun with it. Any two. You know? Where do you get the inspiration? I'll tell you where. Is if you go out in nature and you see something and there's two colors together and it just speaks to you, try those two colors. I'm going to come with a little bit of gray, and I'm going to... This is a kind of loose painting. Again, it's not much darker than the thing, and I'm just making a little bit of... oh gosh, it's like a little bush line. And I just push the brush along and I try to make an uneven edge here. I go up and down. Look at that go. That's a nice little distant far away bit of everything. Look how good that looks. Now we got distant trees. We didn't really have to work that hard for it. We're going to go back into our pink. I'm going to get into my pink heavily. Oh, it's my pink, right? I've got my soft trees now. But I also want to do some pink trees that are like little pieced out leaves. So how I do that is I just touch my brush and make little irregular patterns. I don't want to take out all my beautiful blendies, but it is nice to speak to. A little bit of leaves. This can be an interesting challenge, but remember, the reason you're using these lines is so that you can get a good result and practice these techniques. You're learning to paint. You're just not trying to take on all the things of everything everywhere in art at one time. Because sometimes we ask you guys to do that, don't we? Take on all of art, everything at one time. Isn't it nice?
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage of the fact that there's some soft pink out in the distance. Who can't enjoy that? I just touch my brush and I let it make irregular little shapes, these little irregular bits. These are leaves. They're pointing to the side. They're towards me. Perhaps a little bit of blossom near the couple. Whatever you guys want to do. Video interrupted.
Don't.
The broadcast has been paused and will resume shortly.
It looks. I think that must be just yours because I see everybody else out here.
All right. Good deal. Okay.
It
was just me. My video has been interrupted.
It seems that that's.
I don't get to see what's going on, and I'm so sorry. Okay.
Refresh your page. It'll probably work.
Probably. I'll go back, and it's hard to refresh on the iPad sometimes.
It is.
All right, let's see what's going on. It still thinks I'm here.
Ooh.
So look at this gorgeous thing. Now,
Rachel.
Yes.
Rachel asks, if you have a watercolor pad, can you hot glue the sides to make it a block?
No, because they won't pull. You can use compounding agent, which will allow them to release, and you can find that and do it, but you don't want to use hot glue.
Okay, Rachel, go on Amazon, look up padding compound. Padding.
We're gonna
Padding compound.
Well, John is directing Rachel to padding. Another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to take actually this. I don't want it, the splatters everywhere, but I do want some splatters. So I can use my traceable as kind of a protecting sheet so that I can splatter my forest without splattering all the composition where maybe I don't want it. But it's nice, I think, to have a little splatter, in my opinion. Because that also makes a nice little random leaf, doesn't it? Those beautiful random leaves. Too good. All right. Now, we have this gorgeous area, and some finishing stuff to do. We're actually pretty close to done. I'm going to come through here. And I'm going to pre-wet. It's okay that there's a little pink on my brush because it's going to be a little mix of pink and green. I mean, not green. Gray. Pink and gray. A little gray.
Putting a little Banksy in there.
Putting a little Banksy in there. You know me. Maybe a little darker at that edge there, right? Going at the front. We're creating little shadings. Line and wash. We're letting the wash make the painting. You know, I can bring the little gray up and start my trees. I just am, you know, and you can see how the crayon gave us just a little bit of bark resist, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That wild?
That is wild.
Maybe a little more gray. Tree be the tree. Because it's a little wet, it kind of bleeds in there, and that's sort of lovely. I can take my little branches out.
Oh, you make them stand out a little bit.
Can add them too. Look at that. We can talk about this and kind of pull this out as well. A little bit darker into that watered area. And it really looks like a reflection, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all this is having a little dry and think. We're going to come here and add some little back and forth pink mark. And the pink marks are about the little leaves that are falling. We'll let all this have a second to think about what it's done. I'm going to come over here. And I'll go ahead and start the tree.
You go sit in that puddle of water and bloom and think about what you've done.
Needs to. Think about what it's done. Let that tree just become a tree. The branches can soften into the leaves above them. It's really rather magical. Let's get a little more of the gray. Let it bloom in. Create that interesting sort of little tree.
Mm.
A little darker here, say. I'll just let my paper get a little wet on this side. We'll start the gray again over here. for another little bank ski, as John pointed out.
So, where did splattering technique become a thing?
Well, I think it's always been a thing. I think you give an artist a tool, and then what happens is they make a mess, and they go, if I did this again ever on purpose, I think we think of Jackson Pollock as being but he's not the first person to ever splatter paint, because even splattering in pastels creates incredible effects.
I think about 45,000 years ago, there were some people in a cave that splattered ochre over their hands and made paintings on the wall.
They did.
So I think that's probably the first recorded use of the splatter technique, about 45,000 years ago.
75,000. I don't know. It's a minute ago.
It's a minute ago.
It's a minute ago. We're going to add some pink into this space, right? That bloom out. That's the forest. Letting that be there. And isn't that suddenly now the couple's in this like amazing place? Aren't they in an amazing place? We're almost done, guys. I really, 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 really love this. I'm going to get some of my pink. Pretty heavily loaded onto my brush. You can see it's fairly saturated. All right. Ellen Harris says, I'm loving this. Thank you so much. I'm loving you guys being here, and you're so welcome. Check the events tab on Facebook to see upcoming stuff. Check the calendar on the website, or I try to post up like little chunks of time. I think I've got through the August 11th post up on the page and on the community tab. I try to tell you guys when stuff is afoot. I try not to hide. I don't want dark color too far back. I want some dark color forward. And the reason for that is that, things that are far away, not as vibrant. Huh. I'm going to get a little of my dark color. I'm going to come here. Painting a little bit of shadow. Now, when we're back here, it'll be lighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming forward, darker. And I'm letting it just sort of bloom and become its own thing. And bring the color out here. And you'll notice every time I do that, it kind of pulls that reflection, doesn't it? And pull that down some. Add some little dark, right? Because the ground is dark. There's little... I want to add it. Now, notice that the paper is kind of, if you can see it, buckling.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's why the pad's good, because as it dries, it will completely flatten this back out, and it will be ready to hang and be totally perfect. All right. Karen is answering a question of Lynn's, when she answered it just beautifully. Thank you, Karen Scott. Which is, could you add a third color? Yes. Sometimes I try to show you things like two colors. So if you're on a budget, if you're not sure you want to do something, you just want to dip your toe, you can do that. And also because sometimes people really appreciate a more limited palette in their painting. There's a couple good reasons to do it. Come here and just sort of add a little.
Wow.
A little dark gray. And I'm letting it bloom. The bloom becomes part of the story. I don't fight that. I'm adding little pops of dark color to kind of be like maybe little leaves that fell.
My brain keeps thinking they're walking in the stream.
The road is wet.
I know.
The road is so wet.
It's a stream of love.
It's a stream of love. All right. Just enforcing the bank. All right. Enforce the bank. This is also just a great way to practice your techniques. How are your wash techniques? You know, how are you doing with your color values? You know, are you able to get depth when you need it? Great way to do it. I think a slightly darker value to his pant leg. Another little wash to him. Maybe I'm like, your hair could use a little. Her hair is now a little more, You can come back in on these beautifully washed trees. Sort of dry brush up a darker. Look at that. Gray. Adding that barky texture. Isn't that wonderful?
That is.
Play with the tree branches up top. I do these techniques sometimes with the kids, and I got to tell you, they are always surprising themselves with what they can do. I add a little water to that because I felt like it was just not working, and so I'll come back and soften it. That's how easy it is to correct for something if you feel like it's gotten out of hand. You just correct. I can then bring my little shadows here and you kind of see that happening. Deepening the shadow under the tree. Pulling it into the reflection some. A little bit under the couple.
It's really nice.
Really, really like that. It makes me very, very, very happy. And it gives us a little bit. Now I'm going to show you something, and then I'm going to dry this. But again, you're going to let yours completely develop, right?
Yes. And you do. You want to let that soften and continue to develop and bloom, as she says. It really makes the painting look really nice at the end. So, yeah, you don't need to use a hairdryer. Probably best not to. Although, as you can see, it won't hurt it either. So, just a little different effect. Sometimes, you know, it's good to experiment with these things so you know what they do, how they work. So, yeah. Just has to thoroughly get that dry so that the next layer doesn't bloom at all. I think she wants to be very tight on the next layer. And that's, unfortunately, you have to get a lot of that water out there. Otherwise, it'll continue to draw it out.
I just want this dry enough where I can come over and glaze on top and add another little bit of depth. And a couple things I'm going to show you. If you want to, you can come and ink after. Finding little elements, like if I want to create little shadows under some leaves. Look at me do that. Not even a thing. Okay. That's a nice touch that you can get going if you want to say these are some leaves. I can also make little marks out there to imply leaves, but another little touch that I would like to suggest is if you come in and say, let's do the pink first, right? You can come over the paint when it's dry and glaze in just one more little texture.
Oh, wow.
Of what would be like maybe foliage has fallen on this. It's a great, you practice randomizing your strokes, you know, how you're touching the brush to the canvas. All these things really are actually teaching you skills that you need just generally in watercolor if you were going to paint with outline, right? But sometimes just understanding how to do a technique and then also trying to figure out how to keep a couple looking like a couple, it becomes overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes the whole process, and you don't want it to be the whole process. So it's good to have these wonderful little strategies to help you find another way into your painting. Help it be a little more interesting. Another thing we're learning is how to layer color without making things muddy, aren't we? Learning stuff.
Yeah.
Always fun. That's a little drama. That's a little depth. It's kind of like little foliage, right?
Yeah.
Falling down. It's little rough areas in the.
Shadow along the bank edge.
And along the bank edge.
Everyone thinks it's really pretty.
I'm really liking how it
I
came
like it too. I love the pinks.
Ah, wow. I really love this. Now, Sunday, we've got the Line and Wash Persian Kitten and Baby Chick. Super fun one, too. If you found yourself having trouble with the bloom in this class, and you know you're painting with those pan watercolors, just go grab a little bottle of Oxgall. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it Amazon and in the art store, right? If you can't find that, Wetting Agent by Golden. If you buy the Wetting Agent, that's a very serious art product. That must never go in a spray bottle because that would desuffocate your lungs, and you don't want that. It doesn't have a VOC, but it is a product you wouldn't want inside any mucus areas because it absolutely, completely decimates water surface tension. It's made for cement. That's an emergency one, but you can use it. It works quite well. It's what's in the flow aids are what's in core watercolor, and so it's not intrinsically like a problem. It's just when they put it in the liquid thing, they found people were trying to airbrush with it or do these crazy things that were not good for their health that were unintended. So that's why I pass on that warning to you. That you should never aerosolize surfactants. Just in general, anything that makes the water surface tension break, let's just keep that on a brush or in your cup, not in the air. But got Oxgall, which is pretty safe and is really good, and you can do that. I really like the core. I really like the brands that I listed are very good. The Sennelier has a opera pink that's like not fugitive, which is amazing. Let me show you the pen again. So this is the one that I like. There are others. There are many others. This is just the one I like. It is a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen Black $1.99. There's like a left on Amazon. Usually $6 to $8 stock, right? Don't go above $8 on it because you should be able. I found it as low as like $4. So you can shop it. It's at all the online art stores. It's everywhere. Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen Black $1.99. But the words you're looking for is water fast. It's waterproof. It doesn't move. Once it's down, it's done, and it's light fast India ink. In other words, it's the blackest of the black, and it's not going to fade even over time. Use it in your journal, use it in your art. It's there, it's done, it's good. I love this one. The wax crayons, I got mine on Amazon. I got a bazillion D for not that much money. They're clear crayon. If you can't get that, steal the white crayon out of your kid's box. It'll work the same. If you don't want to do either of that, use a liquid masking agent like Frisket. It works just as well. So those are the two things we're going to add for the line and wash series. There's going to be many. There are going to be kid-friendly projects in that. I heard you guys about the Thanksgiving Christmas idea. Super good. And listen, if you're also in my acrylic class and you love painting, you've got to come by Friday. It's a paint-a-thon. My mom and I are painting together. I'm starting at 1. We're each doing little birds. It's the Little Fat Bird series, the painted bird. They're all little fat, colorful birds. And we're doing 6 in this day. So it goes 45 minutes with me, then 45 minutes with my mom, and then back to me, and then back to my mom. And we do that 3 times each, which is 6 total paintings on a 6x6. We're going to do a grip of them through the end of the year. So if you want to have a light painting that's beginner friendly, that doesn't ask a lot out of your life, it's that. And it's a wonderful collection. It's so gorgeous. You're going to, and fat little birds. All the, I think I'm doing what is it? Some yellow bird that's name is now escaping me, cardinal and a hummingbird. And then my mom is just painting robins. She's pretending the robins got in the palette and got colorful is the last feedback that she gave me. She's still doing her designs. So come by for that. That's an all day thing. And Sunday, we're back with watercolor. Tomorrow we're doing a mermaid on the acrylic channel. Mermaid time. You can watch on Facebook, you can watch on YouTube, and soon you may be able to watch on TikTok as well.
That'll be exciting.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
We're working on it. We're now qualified, so now we're going to start testing badly the feature. And thank you, everyone, for helping me get to 1,009 followers so I can unlock that feature. I really appreciate it. Do not download the app if you don't already have it. I was already stuck there. I had already done it. It had already happened to me. So at that point, I was like, if you were also in that position and just already had the app, come over and follow me. But don't go get the app because it's the same thing that's here and on YouTube. So don't go get the app. All right. Be good to yourselves. Oh, I got a sign.
Oh, you
be
do?
Good to each other. Seriously, be safe out there. We are in this together, even though sometimes it may not feel like we are. We affect each other. So be good to each other, and I want to see you and Easel really soon. Bye-bye.